Evil Dead Burn, supernatural horror movie, being number 6 in the entire Evil Dead franchise, but it serves as a standalone sequel to Evil Dead Rise, made back in 2023. The film is directed by Sebastian Vanacek and produced by Sam Raimi and Robert Tappert. Sam Raimi being part of any horror film is always a plus. Bruce Campbell himself actually helped produce this as well. I do recognize some of the stars in this movie. Sohila Yaqub was in Doom Part 2, I believe. Tenny Wright, I actually remember from, I don't know if y'all remember this movie, but Love and Monsters was Dylan O'Brien. And I think that came out like 2019, 2020. And Hunter Duhan, who I've seen in the Wednesday series. I didn't get to do a video on Evil Dead Rise because I wasn't doing YouTube at that time, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. I never watched the original 1987 Ash vs. Evil Dead series because I'm not even close to being that old, but I do remember hearing positive things about it. Also, I think they did a reboot of the show, bringing Bruce Campbell back, but I don't think that show lasted very long. I did play the 2022 Ash vs. Evil Dead game with friends though, but that didn't last long either because we all kind of lost interest after constant rounds getting our asses kicked in it. IMDb gives the movie a 7 out of 10 rating, and the description goes as follows. After the loss of her husband, a woman seeks solace with her in-laws. As one by one they transform into deadites, she comes to discover that the vows she took in life survive even in death. Okay, now sit back and relax. On this channel we go through the entire movie, then talk about it afterwards, so you get lots of spoilers in your near future. But yeah, Evil Dead Burn, let's go. The movie opens up to a man sitting at a desk ruffling through different pages of satanic passages while listening to a voice on a recording. The voice is telling a story of the Book of the Dead. He explains if you read from it, it will conjure up demons so malevolent that you would think the devil himself was there. The voice also explains that it hid away a weapon that can send these demons back to hell, but if the weapon is unsealed, the demons will sense it. While the voice is saying this, we can see the same man finding a secret compartment under his desk where the weapon is being held, ignoring the warnings. We then transition to two guys, Leo and Jared, fishing on a lake, the same lake we seen in the beginning of Evil Dead Rise. Leo's girlfriend calls him to Jared's annoyance, telling Leo not to answer, she's just freaking out about that lake story. I wonder what lake story they're talking about. They then dock their boat and Leo's girlfriend calls again, and he leaves Jared alone to go take the call. When Leo leaves, we see that his fishing rod has caught something big, pulling all the wire out of the rod and pulling the entire rod itself. Jared then pulls in whatever was snagged on his rod to see a skeleton's head of a woman, again connecting it to Evil Dead Rise. Jared tries to call out to Leo and call someone, but the fishing wire seems to have a mind of its own, wrapping around his face and pulling him into the water. Leo comes back to see Jared in the middle of the water drowning. He gets in the boat and rushes over to Jared to pull him out the water, only to see that half of his body is gone. As Leo starts throwing up overboard, he spots a deadite's head peeking out of the water and begins to swim towards him. He tries to get the boat started, but to no luck. The deadite then flips over the boat, leaving Leo frantic in the water. As he surfaces, the deadite is now standing on top of the now topped over boat. It conjures magic, heating up the water around Leo to boiling temperatures, ending him in the process. The deadite then heads into the woods and comes to a road. It sees a car speeding down the road and steps in front of it. We then transition again to a club where our main characters Alice, played by Sohila Yaqub, Joseph, played by Hunter Duhan, Will, played by George Pullar, and Thaya, played by Lusain Buchan, are all together celebrating Joseph's birthday. Joseph and Will are brothers. Alice and Will are married, and we see that their relationship isn't doing too hot, with Will being a little aggressive with Alice sometimes. Also, we see that nobody really likes Will, he's just the asshole of the group really. Alice and Will get into an argument, causing Alice and Thaya to go outside for a cig. Joseph and Will follow behind, which causes another argument between the couple to ensue. Pissed off, Will goes to drive home, but Joseph stops him because he's drunk, telling him that he'll drive him home. Will just pushes past him and zooms off in his car at high speeds. We later see that the car that hit the deadite earlier was indeed Will's car, causing him to wreck. As he comes to, the deadite says, "We found you, now lead us to your family." The deadite's head then disconnects from the body and rolls off to the side of the car. It then begins to speak the words from the Book of the Dead that conjures those demon spirits I mentioned earlier. Will's car then completely engulfs in flames, ending him in the process. Some time has passed now where we see Will's death is now known to everyone, and Alice is on the way to the funeral with the rest of the family. A phone call with Alice's dad reveals that Alice doesn't really get along with the parents. At the funeral, we meet Joseph's mother, Susan, played by Tandy Wright, grandmother Polly, played by Maud Davey, and father Edgar, played by Errol Shand. We discover as Alice talks to Polly that she is suffering from dementia, and it's aggressive. Alice saying that it's only been a year and she seems like she's not all the way there. The funeral already starts off to a disaster. There's a construction crew working right next to them, causing all type of noise. During Susan's speech at the funeral, she explains that while Will was researching French cuisine in Paris is where he met Alice. Good lore, good lore. Person conducting the funeral, I don't know their name. I don't know if they have a designated name, but she asks Alice if she has anything to say for Will. Alice responds she didn't prepare a speech, which causes some looks from the parents. While the other funeral workers just vibing to music getting ready to cremate this body, Edgar comes and convinces him to let him say goodbye to his son one final time. While Edgar is paying his respects, he hears duds coming from the casket. Edgar begins frantically trying to get it open, breaking the wood on top of the casket. A charred hand then comes out of the hole and grabs Edgar's wrist, burning his skin. We then only see glimpses of a scorched Will coming out of the casket, and he brutally murders the funeral worker right in front of Edgar. As Will is doing his thing, Edgar is just sitting there in almost a hypnotic trance. We then fast forward to see everyone driving to a house that was apparently left to Will and Joseph, but you can tell that they didn't really do anything to take care of it. It's really run down now. In the attic, Susan and Joseph have a conversation about Joseph's grandfather, prompted by the fact that Joseph didn't throw away his grandfather's stuff like Susan told him to. Joseph says that he uses his stuff for inspiration on a book he's writing. We now see that the person sitting at the desk in the beginning is Will, and the voice we heard was his grandfather's. Susan openly resents him, explaining that he was psychotic, was a part of a cult, and abandoned the family when Susan's mother and her sister became ill. We then see Polly having a dementia-induced outburst, claiming Thaya is trying to steal her money. Joseph then goes outside to the shed to see that Edgar isn't doing too well. He's trying to start a grass cutter and coughing relentlessly, and is now hostile towards Joseph, angry that he didn't take care of the house. As Edgar goes to put gas in the grass cutter, he starts to hear voices encouraging him to off himself. Alice catches him in the act and stops him in time. Edgar then asks her not to tell Susan. Now everyone's at the dinner table and tensions are at an all-time high. Edgar is still coughing up a storm and sweating, and for some reason no one's wondering what is wrong with this nigga. Everything gets even more heated when Alice tells the parents she plans on selling the restaurant that her and Will own and moving back to Paris with her father. Susan obviously hates this and wants her to run it by herself, and even saying do it for Will. Edgar then notices that Alice isn't wearing her wedding ring, and that's where she really fucked up. Edgar then eats a scoop of the wettest mashed potatoes I've ever seen in my life. It's almost like his body starts rejecting it, and he begins spitting it back out all over his mouth. My body will reject that shit too. Edgar then begins stabbing the family dog repeatedly, ending it. As Joseph tries to stop him, he hits him in the head with a bottle and passes out. Thaya and Joseph then put Edgar in the car and drive him to the hospital. On the way there, Edgar then awakens, eyes a completely different color. He then begins brutally attacking Thaya. Joseph tries to save her at first, then he just says fuck it and leaves her to die. Let's clap it up for boyfriend of the year, everybody. He then runs back towards the house with Demon Edgar in tow. Back at the house in the shed, Alice finds the Book of the Dead and reads from it. The book says that the same weapon that was sealed away is a dagger created by the cult Joseph's grandfather was a part of. The only thing that can effectively defeat the Deadites. She starts speaking the forbidden 4 words from the book that you are not supposed to read. Nobody in this movie gives a fuck apparently, but she stops herself before she gets to the last word. As she does that, the same dog that died earlier has come back to life apparently, eyes a different color, and jumps through the shed window to attack her. We then transition into the house where Alice, Susan, and Joseph all meet. Joseph runs into the house hyperventilating, telling his mother what his dad just did to his girlfriend. Demon Thaya then tells them to let her in her voice, so of course they listen. Alice opens the door for her. Thaya, now a full-on demon, walks into the house with a car headrest through her mouth and neck. She pulls it out and walks towards the dining room and takes a shot of candle wax. She immediately runs and attacks Susan while Alice and Joseph try to stop her. They end up pushing her down into the basement and locking her down there. Polly, Alice, Susan, and Joseph then run outside only for Demon Edgar to be standing in the yard waiting for them. Edgar then whistles over the demon dog. I guess they're friends now. Edgar then pulls out the strap and starts repeatedly, how do I say this without this video getting flagged? Letting that shit go in his cranium. This causes everyone to get back inside immediately. This shows that, hey, these aren't zombies. It takes more than brain damage to stop these things. We then see that Polly is left alone and Demon Thaya is now trying to convince her to let her out of the basement. And she actually does it. And you know, I don't blame her, because the woman has dementia. Sure, it's really not her fault. It's really their fault for leaving her alone. They all rush over to help Polly, then another fight ensues with Thaya attacking Alice this time. While this is happening, Joseph isn't helping at all. He's just staring this entire time in complete shock. Susan is yelling at him to help her. Thaya then begins to whoop everybody's ass, which confuses me because it slammed Susan into the wall so many times and so hard that the wall literally breaks. How is her back not broken? Spinal. A fight between Joseph and Thaya then begins. Joseph is hesitant to attack her because, you know, that used to be his girlfriend at one point. She then scares him, causing him to fall on some forks and knives in an open dishwasher. Thaya then leaves him when she hears Polly say that she has what she wants. Demon Thaya then heads up the stairs to see Polly is still going on about this money she thinks she stole. Thaya then takes out Polly's dentures, covers it in her own saliva, and then puts it back in Polly's mouth. Joseph then sneak attacks Daya, smashing her noggin in and ending her in the process. Alice then starts having flashbacks of just how abusive Will was to her in their relationship. Joseph and Alice now have time to sit down and, talk about everything for a second. Joseph then explains to Alice about his grandfather and everything he was involved in. He also mentions to Alice that the dagger can still be in the attic. We are now upstairs where Susan is now tucking Polly in. Polly is now obviously a deadite now, but this is actually comforting to Susan as she's just happy to see that her mother remembers her. Polly then tries to convince Susan to help them find the weapon. Enters Demon Edgar knocking on the window. Susan opens the window and shares a nice bloody makeout session with Edgar, which turns her into a deadite, but she goes undercover. Susan then comes downstairs and tries to convince Joseph to give up that dagger. The lights go out and we see this big fight scene between Edgar and Joseph. It actually was a really cool sequence. You can tell it was done in one take. Alice then goes and hides in a closet. We see Joseph's head get slammed through the door of the closet. Before he is dragged away, he tells Alice find the dagger before they do. Alice then heads upstairs to see Susan bleeding on the floor. Polly in full demon mode then comes out of nowhere and attacks her. Granny ain't got dementia no more. Polly then pins her down and sticks a pen right into her ear canal. And I can't lie, I cringed when I seen that shit. Polly then tells Susan to start the grass cutter to end Alice. Susan was actually about to do it, but Alice gets Polly in the eye with a piece of glass, sending her down the stairs. Joseph and Edgar then smash through the ceiling, ending Joseph, and Edgar begins running after Alice and Susan. Alice and Susan then run into the bathroom together. Alice ties Susan to the toilet seat because she, obviously tried to end her earlier. She then stands on top of the toilet to try to create a hole in the roof to escape. As she is doing that, Susan then transforms into a full-on deadite and begins to attack her. A fight ensues which ends with Alice brutally slicing Susan with the grass cutter. Alice then makes her way upstairs to the attic searching for the dagger. We hear Joseph's voice coming from the attic entrance asking Alice to pull him up, but then the voice becomes demonic, showing that this is not Joseph anymore. He then climbs up the attic entrance holding himself up. Alice then begins stabbing him with different daggers while Joseph taunts her, saying that it's the wrong one. She then finds the right one and stabs Joseph, turning him back to normal but ending him in the process. Susan then gets to the attic to attack Alice, but she runs out the window and onto the roof. She slips while on the roof and ends up dropping the knife on the ground. Now with Edgar and Susan in tow, Alice jumps into the chimney with the grass cutter. Susan follows her down and Alice ends Susan with it. She continues down into the chimney into the house. Edgar follows and she ends him as well. Alice then throws a lighter to burn the house down and then runs outside. As she is outside, she picks up the dagger while the demon dog rushes after her and she ends the dog as well. As she is lying outside, she gets up to see Will is here, somewhat alive but burnt to a crisp. This must be like some different variant of Deadite he's become. He walks towards her from inside the house, taunting her the entire time as it is now engulfed in flames. Alice runs away into the woods and comes across a construction site. She finds a walkie-talkie and tries to hide, but then music starts playing from it, giving away her position. Will then surprise attacks her, throwing her down into a pit with a stick of rebar now on her leg. He then starts to fill up the pit with hot black tar. Alice manages to get herself free and climb out, but Will then attacks her again, pinning her down and demanding where the dagger is. Alice then throws a different knife she already had on her into the black tar, telling Will to go get it. While Will goes looking, Alice gets her hand on a jackhammer and starts drilling Will's chest in. Will seems like he's dead. Sigh. He rises up back out the tar, stabbing Alice in the leg, demanding once again, where is the dagger? Alice then grabs the dagger and stabs him with it. She then hallucinates Will as his alive self. Will says he loves her, but Alice ain't trying to hear all that shit. She then starts peeling off his cranium with her bare hands, ending Will. Alice then crawls to the main road. As she lays on the ground, we see ambulances and police approach. Some time passes and we see Alice in the back of an ambulance getting her wounds treated. One of the paramedics asks, "Who did this to you?" Alex simply responds, "My ex-husband." Roll credits and that is Evil Dead Burn. I was a little confused at first because I didn't know how the Deadite infection worked. In these newer movies, as I explained before, are the only ones I saw, so it seems to have a bunch of different ways that it spreads. They probably explained it in the older ones, but I looked it up and here's what I found. Deadite infection is technically a demonic possession by Kandarian demons, not a biological virus. While the process often resembles an infection through fluid exchange, the primary mechanism relies on mental and spiritual weakness of the victim. And here are some of the mechanisms that I found they were talking about. Physical trauma. A wound inflicted by a deadite, a bite, scratch, or puncture that draws blood is a common vector for introducing the demonic spirit. Mental vulnerability. Possession requires the victim to be in a state of intense distress, fear, or despair. Characters with strong willpower like Ash Williams can resist possession even when severely injured because they maintain their mental resistance. And last but not least, direct contact. Demons can possess their host to direct contact with a Necronomicon ex mortis, contaminated body fluid, or manipulating inanimate objects to attack vulnerable individuals. So like I said, there was a lot of lore here that I wasn't privy to beforehand. The movie was great though. I would give it a higher rating of an 8 out of 10. When it comes to a horror movie, this series seems to never disappoint. Suella did her thing in this. I believe this is one of her few lead roles she had, if I'm not mistaken. She's had like 5, I think. The gore was definitely not downplayed in this, which I love. Don't think it would be Evil Dead without that. Something I did notice, which I like by the way, from the clips I've seen from the Ash vs Evil Dead series, they relied a lot on comedy aspect of it because, you know, it was a horror comedy. I do like how in the newer movies there's a more serious tone to it while having some comedic aspects to it. The comedy is still there, but you can tell the horror part of it was taking priority. I loved some of the shots in this movie. I mentioned the scene where the camera follows Alice while chaos just ensues around her inside the whole house. That was perfection. But yeah, Evil Dead Burn, amazing addition to the series. When it comes to Sam Raimi and horror, you always are in for a good treat. Okay y'all, so disclaimer, I will be doing a video on the Odyssey, but I upload videos every Friday. Subscribe by the way, I upload videos every week. But yeah, so Spider-Man Brand New Day comes out next Friday, so I will do a video on that the following Friday, so make sure you subscribe if you want to tune in for that. As always, you can leave in the comments movie recommendations and I'll be sure to consider any suggestions. But yeah, enjoy y'all weekend and I'll hope to see y'all on the next video.